When it comes to German bombers of the Second World War, most people likely think of the Heinkel HE-111. Sure, this was an impressive aircraft, but many would argue another plane should be considered as one of the best German bombers of the whole war. The Junkers Ju-88 was nothing short of one of the best designed machines of the German war effort. This incredibly versatile aircraft would be utilised in a multitude of roles, from the first days of the war right the way to the end. It saw action on every German front and would be involved in some of the biggest and most decisive battles of the war. In today's video, we look at the Ju-88 German bomber and its many uses throughout World War II. If you enjoy this video and want to see more, hit the subscribe button. It's free and really helps the channel reach more history lovers like you. The aircraft first came to fruition in 1935 when the need for a high-speed medium bomber was sought. Known as a schnellbomber, German aviation leaders wanted an aircraft which could outrun the fastest fighters of the time. From this, Junkers found themselves with a contract after creating the Ju-88, and when asking for a high-speed bomber, Junkers certainly took that seriously. The Ju-88 would reach speeds of 360 miles or 580 kilometres an hour, incredible for a bomber. Moreover, the versatility of the fuselage meant it could be adapted to a heap of different roles. Throughout the war, the 88 would see itself as a horizontal bomber, dive bomber, torpedo bomber, heavy fighter, night fighter, mine layer, photo reconnaissance, communication, and even a flying bomb. Truly an all-round plane. Some 15,000 would be built over its life, with 9,000 of those filling the role as bombers. The highest produced and most common bombing version was the A series. This would feature two huge engines with 1400 horsepower, allowing the plane to reach a range of 1500 miles or 2,400 kilometres. The payload was a maximum of 7,900 pounds or 3,500 kilograms. These versions would feature 3 gun positions with a crew of 4 men. The crew included the pilot, bombardier, rear gunner, who also doubled as the radio operator, and certainly the most precarious position in the aircraft, the belly gunner. Often referred to as the deathbed, this position required the belly gunner to lay flat under the front of the aircraft, usually armed with an MG-15 machine gun. This position was very much at risk of anti-aircraft fire, shrapnel, and attacking fighters from underneath, hence the nickname for the position. One of the most interesting versions was the A4, that being the dive-bombing Ju-88. With only 3 gun positions all at the front of the aircraft, the 88s were lightly defended compared to many other bombers of the war, but it had a special feature to aid in defence. Known as the Rauchgehört or smoke device, the pilot could hit a switch which poured oil into one of the engines, creating a lot of smoke. The pilot would then put the plane into a dive, which gave the appearance for any attacking fighters that the bomber was hit and going down, therefore causing the fighters to veer off and giving the 88 time to escape. But perhaps one of the most impressive things was an early autopilot feature for dive bombing. The pilot would set the altitude at which he wanted the aircraft to level out at. He then pulled a lever which put the aircraft into this autopilot mode. Under the wings, dive brakes would unfold to slow the plane's descent. The bomb bay doors would open and the engines start to idle. The aircraft then begins to enter its dive. This is where it really opened up and was able to reach such high speeds as it hurtled towards the target. Because of the high speeds, the propeller blades would turn sideways to slow them down and avoid engine damage. Once the altitude set by the pilot before the dive was reached, the bombs were released and the plane would level out automatically. This feature was very important as the G-forces reached in the dive could result in the crew passing out, so leveling out automatically saved the crew from potential disaster. This Ju-88 version was very useful and could attack shipping and ground targets with ease. The dive bombers would have much success in the opening months of Operation Barbarossa, that being the invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941. Some 2,000 Soviet aircraft would be destroyed in the opening stages of the operation, many of these on the ground, by attacking German aircraft, including the Ju-88. Some of the other versions included the Ju-88 D series. This designed as a dedicated reconnaissance platform. The D series featured improved range and high altitude capabilities. It was equipped with cameras and other specialized equipment for intelligence gathering missions over vast distances. The P series was an anti-tank variant, equipped with a cannon mounted in the nose. This version was intended for ground attack and anti-armor operations, but faced challenges due to the cannon's recoil on the aircraft, and it had mixed results. The G series was developed as a heavy fighter and night fighter. This was armed with powerful cannons and machine guns to engage enemy bombers. Some of these versions were equipped with radar for nocturnal operations and were highly effective against Allied targets. The H series was a dedicated torpedo bomber for naval operations. It had modified landing gear to accommodate torpedoes and reinforced structures to handle the increased weight. Naval targets became quite important to the Germans, and these aircraft were used extensively in and around the Mediterranean Sea. Modifications created the S series, which was designed for anti-shipping operations, and much like the A4, it was equipped with dive brakes and a specialized armament to attack maritime targets effectively. Definitely the strangest version was the Ju-88 Mistral. This involved a combination of a Ju-88A4 bomber carrying either a Messerschmitt Bf-109 or Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighter aircraft. The upper aircraft was piloted and guided the Ju-88 towards the target before being released near the end of the approach. With its lack of defense, the Mistral operated exclusively at night. The lower bomber was modified to carry a massive warhead, and successful attacks were made against targets, such as the French battleship Oran in 1943. But results were mixed, and only approximately 140 Mistrals were produced during the war. Many Ju-88s ended up in Allied hands. This allowed the aircraft to be studied in order to find weaknesses and provide Allied attacking aircraft with an advantage when engaging the enemy in the air. Overall, the Ju-88 was a very successful aircraft for the Luftwaffe. The simple design allowed for it to fulfill many different roles, as already mentioned. This saved on manufacturing costs and simplified the process, allowing for so many planes to be produced throughout the war. German pilots have indicated it was an incredibly easy plane to fly, and it manoeuvred so well in the air. Given its speed, it was also able to outrun some Allied fighters, but ultimately, as newer fighters got faster, losses to the 88s became high if they were not escorted by German fighters. Even though so many were manufactured, only a small number actually exist today. It's a shame that many don't realise just how good these aircraft were. What did you think of the Junkers Ju-88 bombers of World War II? Do you think it was one of the best German bombers of the war? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to expand your knowledge and join the growing Premier History community.